I, 28F, thought wedding planning would be stressful in the usual ways, fighting with vendors, choosing a color scheme, worrying about money. I didn't expect the stress to come from my fiancé, 29M, the man I'm supposed to trust more than anyone. We've been together 4 years, engaged for 1. Our wedding is set for early summer, and everything seemed fine. My dress was picked, the venue booked, invites were being finalized. Then last week, I came home from work and saw a stack of papers on the dining table, his rough draft of the guest list. I wasn't snooping. It was literally sitting there next to the grocery list. I skimmed it out of curiosity, smiling when I saw familiar names, my cousins, our mutual friends. Then my eyes landed on a name that stopped me cold, Melissa. His ex. The ex. The one he dated for 5 years before me, the one his family always described as sweet in that loaded tone, the one he claimed he was completely over. At first I thought maybe it was a mistake. But no, her name was written clearly, along with her current boyfriend's. I felt my stomach drop. When he came home, I tried to be calm. I said, "Hey, I saw the guest list. Why is Melissa invited?" He looked at me like I'd just asked why the sky is blue. "Because she's a friend," he said casually, tossing his keys in the bowl. "A friend?" I repeated. "She's your ex. You never even mentioned inviting her." He shrugged. "We ended years ago. It's ancient history. We stayed friendly. I didn't think it was a big deal. Not a big deal. To him, maybe. To me? It felt like a punch. I told him it made me uncomfortable. That I didn't want his ex at my wedding, the day that's supposed to be about us. He sighed, rolled his eyes, and said I was making drama out of nothing. We argued for hours. I said it felt disrespectful. He said I was insecure. I asked why he didn't even talk to me about it. He said he knew I'd overreact, so he just wrote her in. That word overreact lit me on fire. Because suddenly it wasn't about Melissa anymore. It was about the fact that he made a choice for both of us, behind my back, and then blamed me for caring. The worst part? When we talked to his family about it, they sided with him. His mom said, "It's just one guest. Don't be childish." His sister told me, "Real adults stay friends with their exes. You should be proud he's mature enough to invite her." Meanwhile, my mom nearly had a stroke when I told her. She said, "If your dad had tried that with me, there wouldn't have been a wedding." And now I'm stuck in the middle. Half the people I love are telling me to suck it up and be secure. The other half are telling me it's a huge red flag. And me? I'm lying awake at night staring at the ceiling, wondering if I should even marry a man who thinks my feelings are less important than keeping his ex comfortable. After that first fight, I honestly thought he'd cool down, think it over, and realize how ridiculous this was. But instead, he doubled down. The next evening, I tried again. I said, "Listen, this isn't about me being insecure. It's about respect. This is our wedding. Decisions like this should be made together. And I'm telling you, I don't want her there." He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and gave me this smug little smile that made my blood boil. "And I'm telling you, it's my wedding too. I get a say. You don't get to dictate the entire guest list just because you have a personal hang-up." A personal hang-up. That's what he called my boundary. I asked him, "Would you be okay if I invited my ex-boyfriend? The one I dated for years, the one I once thought I'd marry?" He snorted. "That's different." "How?" I demanded. "Because I'm not insecure like you," he shot back. "I don't care if you're still friends with your ex. If you wanted him there, fine." That's when I realized it wasn't just about Melissa. It was about control. He didn't care about fairness. He cared about winning. I told him it wasn't happening. That I'd rather walk down the aisle with empty chairs than have his ex watching me say vows to him. He slammed his hand on the table and said, "You're trying to embarrass me in front of my friends and family. Do you know how petty you sound? People will think you're insecure, jealous, unstable." Unstable. That word rang in my ears long after the fight ended. Because I know exactly what that was: emotional manipulation. Making me question my sanity for having a completely reasonable boundary. And the kicker? His mom called me the next day. Not him, his mom. She said, "Honey, you really need to pick your battles. Melissa is a sweetheart. She even sent a gift when you two got engaged. Don't ruin a happy occasion over something so small." Small. A wedding is supposed to be the most intimate, meaningful day of my life. How is it small that my fiancé is prioritizing his ex's feelings over mine? My dad, who almost never gives relationship advice, pulled me aside and said quietly, "If he's not listening to you now, what makes you think he'll listen later? Marriage doesn't fix that, it magnifies it." And that's the thought that's been haunting me ever since. Am I about to marry a man who's already showing me that my feelings come second? Because I can ignore a bad cake flavor. I can ignore chair covers I don't like. But I can't ignore the fact that I told him I was hurt, and his answer was to call me insecure, dramatic, and unstable. Now I keep looking at my engagement ring and wondering if it's actually a warning sign instead of a promise. A few days later, after stewing over everything, I decided I couldn't live in limbo anymore. I needed clarity. So I sat him down at the kitchen table and said, "We need to talk." "Really talk?" He sighed like I was asking him to scrub toilets. "What now?" "This," I said, sliding the guest list across to him, Melissa's name circled in red ink. "This isn't negotiable for me. I don't want her at our wedding. Either you take her off the list, or we need to seriously reconsider if this marriage is even a good idea." For a second, he just stared at me. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "You're threatening to cancel our wedding over one person? Do you realize how insane that sounds?" I didn't flinch. What sounds insane is marrying a man who hides things from me and then mocks me when I tell him I'm hurt. This isn't about Melissa. This is about respect. And right now, you're showing me you don't respect me. That wiped the smirk off his face. His jaw tightened. "So you're giving me an ultimatum?" "I'm giving you a choice," I corrected. "It's her, or it's me. Because I refuse to stand at the altar in front of someone who once shared your bed, who you secretly invited behind my back, and who you're defending more fiercely than you've ever defended me." His eyes went cold. "You're unbelievable. This is exactly what I was afraid of, you turning into a bridezilla, making everything about you, acting like the world revolves around your feelings. A marriage is about compromise. But clearly you don't understand that." That hit me like a slap. Because in his mind, compromise meant me shutting up and letting him do what he wanted. I stood up, shaking. Compromise is when two people meet in the middle. But there is no middle ground here. Either she's at the wedding, or she's not. And if she is, then I'm not. For the first time, he didn't have a quick comeback. He just stared at me, fists clenched, like he couldn't believe I was serious. Finally, he muttered, "Fine. I'll take her off the list. But don't think this means you've won. You're just proving you can't handle adult relationships." And right then, I felt something snap inside me. Because it wasn't relief. It wasn't victory. It was exhaustion. I realized I shouldn't have to fight this hard for the bare minimum of respect. Later that night, while he was asleep, I sat in the living room staring at my engagement ring again. And for the first time, I started to picture a future without him. The morning after that fight, I woke up feeling like I had a hangover, even though I hadn't touched a drop of alcohol. My body was heavy, my head was pounding, and my chest ached like I'd been holding my breath all night. He acted normal, making coffee, scrolling his phone, humming along to the radio like we hadn't just come to the brink of canceling our wedding. But I couldn't shake it. The way he mocked me. The way he only backed down when I threatened to walk. The way he framed it like I was the problem, not him. So I did what people my age do when they don't know what else to do. I opened Reddit. I went to r/relationships and poured my heart out under a throwaway account. I typed everything, the guest list, Melissa, his reaction, his family backing him up, my family telling me to run. I ended it with, "Am I throwing away a good man over something small? Or is this the red flag I think it is?" The comments exploded. Hundreds within hours. And almost every single one said the same thing: "This isn't about the ex. This is about respect. He hid it from you, dismissed you, mocked you, and only changed course under threat. That's not partnership. That's manipulation." Reading those words hit me harder than anything my mom or dad had said. Strangers, people who had no stake in my life, saw it clearly. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I was being disrespected. I showed a few comments to my best friend later that day, and she nearly threw her phone across the room. "Girl, this isn't even about Melissa anymore. This is about whether you want to spend your life being treated like you're less than." Even my cousin, who usually tries to play devil's advocate, said, "If he can't put your comfort above one random guest, what happens when you disagree about money, kids, or careers?" This is a preview of marriage. And I realized they were right. That night, I sat across from him at dinner and studied his face as he talked about work. And all I could think was, do I want to live like this forever? Always second-guessing, always fighting to be heard, always wondering if my boundaries will be respected or ridiculed. It was the first time I admitted it to myself: maybe this wedding shouldn't happen at all. I didn't want to bottle it up anymore. If I was truly having second thoughts about marrying him, I had to tell him, even if it led to the ugliest fight of our relationship. So the next evening, I asked him to sit down with me in the living room. He sat across from me, arms crossed, already defensive before I'd even opened my mouth. I started slow, my voice shaking. "I need to be honest with you. The guest list thing, it's not just about Melissa anymore. It's about how you handled it. You hid it from me, you mocked me, you called me unstable. That hurt. And now, I don't know if I feel safe marrying someone who reacts like that when I set a boundary." He scoffed. Actually scoffed. "Safe? Are you serious right now? I didn't hit you, I didn't cheat on you, I didn't do anything wrong. All I did was invite an old friend. You're the one blowing it out of proportion." My chest tightened. This isn't about her anymore. It's about how you treat me when I tell you I'm uncomfortable. You turned it around on me instead of listening. That's not partnership. That's when he exploded. He stood up, pacing the room, throwing his hands in the air. "Oh my God, You sound just like my sister. Always playing the victim, always making everything about your feelings. Do you know how exhausting that is? Do you know how embarrassing it is to tell my family you threatened to cancel our wedding over something so stupid? The mention of his family made my blood run cold. You told them? He smirked. Of course I told them. They needed to know why you've been acting like a crazy person. And guess what? They all agree with me. My mom, my sister, even my dad. They said you need to grow up. That marriage is about compromise. That you can't just walk away every time you don't get your way. My stomach dropped. Not only had he minimized my feelings, he'd weaponized his family against me. He'd dragged them into something that should have been between us, just to prove I was the problem. I whispered, so now it's me against all of you? He shrugged, no guilt in his eyes. If you're going to act unreasonable, yeah. Maybe hearing it from other people will finally knock some sense into you. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't even trying to meet me halfway. He was triangulating me, pulling in his family to pressure me into silence. I stood up, my hands shaking. Do you hear yourself? You're not trying to understand me at all. You're just trying to win. To make me feel small until I give in. That's not marriage. That's control. He rolled his eyes. Oh, here we go with the dramatic monologue. You've been spending too much time on those Reddit threads, haven't you? Reading stories about toxic relationships and convincing yourself you're some victim too. Newsflash, relationships aren't fairy tales. Sometimes you don't get your way. Something inside me snapped. I walked to the bedroom, grabbed the engagement ring off my nightstand, and came back to the living room. I set it down on the coffee table between us. Sometimes you don't get your way either. And if you think I'm going to marry someone who laughs at my feelings and calls me unstable, you're wrong. His face went pale. He hadn't expected me to go that far. For once, he didn't have a snarky comeback. He just stared at the ring, jaw tight, eyes burning. Finally, he muttered, "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." And maybe I was. But in that moment, for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was finally standing up for myself. After leaving the ring on the table that night, I half expected him to blow up, maybe yell, maybe storm out. But he didn't. He just sat there staring at it, silent, like he was calculating his next move. That silence scared me more than his yelling ever did. Because silence meant he wasn't shocked, he was strategizing. The next morning, I woke up to 14 missed calls. Not from him. From his mom. 2 from his sister. Even 1 from his aunt. My heart sank before I even listened to the voicemails. When I finally did, I nearly threw my phone against the wall. His mom's voice, "Sweetheart, I think you're forgetting what marriage really means. You're supposed to stand by him, not fight him. If you start like this, you'll never last. Melissa is a non-issue. If you're going to call off a wedding over something so petty, maybe you're not ready to be a wife." His sister's voice, "Wow. Threatening to break off the engagement because of your jealousy? Do you realize how manipulative that is? You don't deserve him if you can't handle him having friends." And his aunts, "Honey, I know you're stressed, but you're humiliating our family with this drama. Everyone knows weddings are hard. Get over yourself before you regret it. Our family. Not mine. Theirs." Suddenly I wasn't just fighting my fiancé, I was fighting his whole bloodline. And the worst part? He had clearly gone to them, told them his version, and painted me as some unstable bridezilla so convincingly that they all ganged up on me. When I confronted him later that day, he didn't even deny it. He said flatly, "Yeah, I told them. You embarrassed me, threatening to walk out. They deserve to know what kind of person I'm marrying." My jaw dropped. What kind of person you're marrying? You mean someone who won't let you steamroll her? Someone who expects honesty? He smirked. No. Someone who makes ultimatums. Someone who acts like a child when she doesn't get her way. I swear in that moment, I could feel the respect draining out of me like water down a sink. Because it wasn't just about Melissa anymore. It wasn't even about the wedding. It was about the fact that this man saw me as a problem to be managed, not a partner to be cherished. I did the only thing I could think of. I called my mom. I broke down crying as I told her everything, the guest list, the fight, the phone calls from his family. She was quiet for a long time, and then she said the one thing I hadn't wanted to admit to myself, "Sweetheart, if this is how he treats you before marriage, imagine how it'll be after. Marriage magnifies everything. If he belittles you now, he'll belittle you worse later. Do you really want to sign up for a lifetime of this?" That question cut straight to the bone. Because she was right. I kept hoping marriage would fix things, smooth the rough edges. But what if marriage just cemented them? That evening, I went to my best friend's apartment. She poured me a glass of wine before I even sat down and said, "Talk." I unloaded everything. She listened, nodded, and finally said, "I'm going to be blunt. This isn't about Melissa. This is about power. He's testing how much you'll bend. Today it's an X on the guest list. Tomorrow it's where you live. Then it's how many kids you have. Then it's your career. This is who he is. You either accept it, or you leave. I cried harder hearing that, because I knew she was right. Meanwhile, he wasn't letting up. The next day, he texted me, "If you want to fix this, apologize to my family. They feel hurt by how you treated me." I nearly dropped my phone. Apologize? To them? For what? Defending myself? For daring to say my boundaries mattered? That was the moment I realized something terrifying. He wasn't looking for a resolution. He was looking for surrender. He wanted me to fold, to admit I was wrong, to let him and his family set the rules. And I couldn't. I just couldn't. So I called off the florist. I emailed the photographer. I froze the catering order. I didn't cancel the wedding outright, but I pressed pause. Because until I figured out what the hell I was doing, I couldn't stomach the idea of walking down that aisle. When he found out, he exploded. "You're humiliating me in front of everyone. Do you know how many deposits we've made? Do you know how this makes me look?" And that's when I finally said it out loud. "I don't care how it makes you look. I care how it makes me feel. And right now, I feel like marrying you would be the biggest mistake of my life." The silence that followed was deafening. He stared at me like I'd stabbed him. Then he muttered, "You'll regret this," and stormed out. I sat there on the couch, my head spinning, the weight of the ring heavy in my palm. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt something close to peace. Because deep down, I knew the wedding wasn't postponed. It was over. And maybe, just maybe, that was the best decision I could have made for myself. The night he stormed out, I half expected him to come back a few hours later, pounding on the door with some half-baked apology, swearing he didn't mean it. But he didn't. Instead, the silence stretched into days. 3 days without a text, without a call, without him even picking up his stuff. On the 4th day, I came home from work and found the key I'd given him sitting on the counter with a note. Not an apology, not an explanation. Just, "Call me when you're ready to stop being dramatic." That was it. For years together, 1 year engaged, and he reduced our entire relationship to me being dramatic. Something inside me broke, but in the breaking came clarity. I picked up the engagement ring, slid it into the small velvet box it came in, and set it on top of his note. And then I called my mom. "I think it's over," I whispered into the phone. My mom didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't gloat. She just said, "Come home. We'll figure it out together." That weekend, I sat at my parents' kitchen table, the wedding binder spread open in front of me, going through page after page of vendor contracts, realizing just how much money was already tied up in this disaster. Thousands in deposits. Non-refundable fees. My mom put her hand on mine and said, "Money can be earned back. Your peace of mind can't." My dad, usually a man of few words, added quietly, "Better to lose money than lose yourself." But the financial fallout wasn't even the worst part. The social fallout hit faster. Within days, his family was in full-blown smear campaign mode. His sister posted a cryptic Facebook status, "Imagine throwing away the best man you'll ever have because you can't handle being an adult. Some people don't know what they've got until it's gone." His mom sent messages to mutual friends, painting me as unstable and controlling. She even reached out to one of my cousins to warn her that I had serious issues and needed professional help. And him? He leaned right into the victim role. He told everyone who would listen that I'd called off a wedding over a guest list and that I was too immature to handle marriage. He left out the parts where he lied, mocked me, and weaponized his family against me. I can't lie, it stung. Mutual friends stopped responding to my texts. A coworker who had been invited to the wedding awkwardly avoided me in the break room. Everywhere I turned, I felt like people were whispering. And maybe they were. But for every person who judged me, there were others who showed up. My best friend came over with wine and takeout, declaring, "We're having a non-bachelorette party to celebrate you dodging a bullet." My cousin, the one his mom had tried to sway, texted me screenshots of the messages with a simple caption, "Don't worry. We know the truth." And then there was Kat, his little sister, the only one from his side who reached out. She sent me a DM that said, "I'm sorry for everything. You don't deserve this. Please don't let my mom's words get to you. She does this to everyone." I cried reading that, because it reminded me that toxicity spreads, and sometimes the people caught in it are just as trapped as you are. In the middle of all this chaos, I found myself staring at the engagement ring again, still sitting in its box on my nightstand. For weeks it had felt like a shackle, a symbol of the mess I was drowning in. But that night, for the first time, I saw it for what it really was, a warning sign I was smart enough not to ignore. So I called him. I kept my voice steady, even though my hands were shaking. "I'm done," I said. "I'm not marrying you. The ring will be at your mom's house tomorrow. Don't contact me again." He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just sighed and said, "You'll regret this." Then he hung up. The next day, I drove to his parents' house, handed the ring to his mom, and walked away without another word. She tried to say something, but I didn't even let her finish. That chapter was closed. And walking back to my car, for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Breaking off the engagement should have been the end, but of course it wasn't. Walking away from him didn't magically erase the mess he and his family created. If anything, the weeks that followed felt like the real battle had just begun. At first, I thought he would just disappear. He had his narrative, me as the unstable, jealous fiancé, and his family seemed more than happy to amplify it. I figured he'd lick his wounds, move on, and find someone else to prop up his ego. But instead, it was like he and his mom went on a campaign to make sure I never forgot him, never got the chance to move forward in peace. It started with the whispers. Friends who had RSVP'd yes to the wedding stopped reaching out. A couple even unfriended me on social media. My old coworker pulled me aside at lunch one day and said, "Hey, just so you know, your ex's mom has been talking to people at church about you. She's saying you cheated, that you were unstable, that you broke his heart for no reason." I laughed bitterly at first, it was so absurd, but then I saw the look on my coworker's face. She believed me, but not everyone would. Then came the texts. Not from him, but from random numbers I didn't recognize. He deserved better. "You should be ashamed. Melissa is prettier anyway." I don't know if it was him, his family, or just mutual acquaintances who bought into his version of events, but it rattled me. Every buzz of my phone made my stomach flip. The lowest point came when my boss pulled me into her office. She looked uncomfortable, almost apologetic, and said, "I don't know how else to tell you this, but someone called the office asking if you were mentally stable. They said you'd had a breakdown and that we should keep an eye on you." My blood ran cold. My boss didn't believe it, thankfully, but the damage was done. Someone, almost certainly his mom, had tried to sabotage my career. That night I sat in my apartment, lights off, crying into my hands. I felt like I'd escaped the engagement but landed in another prison, this one made of gossip, rumors, and reputational poison. My mom found me like that, sitting in the dark, and she hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. She whispered, "They can't touch your truth. The more they talk, the more desperate they look. You keep standing tall, and eventually people will see." And slowly, she was right. The tide began to turn. Friends who had gone quiet started trickling back, sending messages like, "Hey, I'm sorry I didn't reach out sooner. I heard his side first, but now I realize it didn't add up." My cousin posted publicly on Facebook, without naming names, "Funny how some people try to destroy others with lies, but the truth always finds a way out." Even Kat, his little sister, snuck me a message one night, "He's already hanging out with Melissa again." Mom's thrilled. Guess you weren't the problem after all. My stomach twisted at that, but in a way, it was vindication. He'd spent weeks accusing me of being insecure, crazy, dramatic for not wanting her around, and now he was proving exactly why I was uncomfortable in the first place. The final nail in the coffin came from someone I never expected, Melissa herself. She DM'd me on Instagram, of all places. The message was short but devastating. "For what it's worth, I had no idea he invited me without telling you. I thought you were cool with it. I'm sorry for all the drama. Honestly, you dodged a bullet." I sat staring at that message for what felt like hours. Melissa, the woman at the center of all of this, was basically confirming what I already knew. It had never been about her. It had been about him. His choices. His lies. His lack of respect. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt free. Because the truth was out there, even if not everyone saw it yet. He could spin whatever story he wanted, his mom could whisper in every ear she found, but the people who mattered, my family, my true friends, even Melissa, knew the reality. And as I lay in bed that night, my phone face down on the nightstand, I realized I didn't regret calling off the wedding for a second. The money lost, the friendships tested, the rumors swirling, they were all the price of freedom. And freedom was worth every penny. By the time a month had passed since I officially returned the ring, I'd started piecing myself back together. It wasn't easy. Most mornings I woke up with that heavy, sinking feeling in my chest, like the world was watching me under a microscope. But I forced myself to get out of bed, shower, eat breakfast, and do one small thing that reminded me life still had meaning. Sometimes it was a walk through the park. Sometimes it was calling my cousin. Sometimes it was just cleaning the kitchen and lighting a candle. I also started therapy. My best friend pushed me into it, and I'm so grateful she did. My therapist didn't sugarcoat things. On our first session she said, "You didn't just dodge a bad marriage, you escaped a power dynamic that could have destroyed you." She helped me unpack the way he and his family gaslit me, how he twisted every concern into me being dramatic, how he triangulated me against his family to make me feel outnumbered. She even pointed out that the smear campaign afterward wasn't about me at all, it was about control. They were furious I broke free. Their gossip wasn't truth. It was desperation. Work, surprisingly, became a safe haven. My boss, the same one who had told me about the anonymous call questioning my stability, took me aside after a staff meeting and said, "I want you to know I've got your back. Whoever made that call doesn't define you here." It was the first time in weeks I felt like my professional life was secure. That gave me courage to start applying for a promotion that I'd been too scared to go after before. But of course, just when I felt like I was finally finding some footing, he and his mom resurfaced. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was leaving the grocery store with a cart full of bags when I heard someone calling my name. I froze. It was his mom, standing by her car, waving at me like we were old friends. My stomach clenched. And then I saw him, my ex-fiancé, leaning against the passenger door, arms crossed. Every cell in my body screamed to turn and run, but before I could, his mom was already walking toward me, her voice syrupy sweet. "Honey, we just want to talk. No fighting, no drama. Just talk." I shook my head immediately. "There's nothing to talk about." But my ex stepped forward, his voice low, almost rehearsed. "Look, I know things got messy. But we loved each other once. Don't you think we owe it to ourselves to clear the air? Maybe even, try again?" I almost laughed. Try again? After everything? After the lies, the gaslighting, the harassment, the smearing? I couldn't believe the audacity. You think I'd walk back into that nightmare? You think I'd marry into a family that tried to destroy me? His mom's face hardened instantly, the fake sweetness dropping. "Be careful, sweetheart. People are already talking. Do you really want to be the bitter ex who ruined a good man's life?" And that's when it hit me, they weren't here to reconcile. They were here to control the narrative. They wanted me to back down, to play nice, to stop telling people the truth. They wanted me to protect his reputation at the cost of my own peace. I looked them both dead in the eye and said, "You don't get to define me. You don't get to decide what people think of me. You tried, and you failed. I'm done being scared of you." Then I pushed my cart past them, heart racing but steady, and drove away. That night, I told my therapist what happened, and she smiled softly. "Do you realize what you did? You faced them and didn't fold. That's not weakness. That's power." And for the first time since the whole nightmare began, I believed her. By the time winter rolled around, it finally felt like I had stepped out of the storm. Therapy was helping me untangle the mess in my head. My family had my back no matter what. My friends were still here, the real ones anyway, and the fake ones had fallen away, which, in hindsight, was a blessing. At work, I landed that promotion I'd been scared to apply for. It felt like proof that I wasn't unstable, I wasn't dramatic. I was capable, steady, and stronger than I ever thought. The smear campaign fizzled out faster than I'd expected. His family was loud for a while, posting cryptic things on Facebook, cornering mutual acquaintances at parties, spinning the story of me as the crazy ex-bride. But after a few months, people got tired of hearing it. Even the most dedicated gossip loses its shine when the supposed villain doesn't play alone. I didn't bite back. I didn't post vague statuses. I didn't text him at midnight. I went quiet and focused on my own life. And in that silence, their story fell apart. The final twist came from someone I least expected, his cousin. She reached out one night, DM'd me on Instagram, "I just wanted you to know, he's been seeing Melissa. They've been together since right after you broke up. Honestly, I think that's why he invited her in the first place. You were right all along." I stared at that message for a long time. My chest tightened, but not from heartbreak. From validation. All those nights he mocked me, called me insecure, dramatic, unstable for not wanting her there, he was already halfway back with her. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. And suddenly, it didn't hurt anymore. It felt like the final puzzle piece sliding into place. He hadn't been protecting a friendship, he'd been protecting his ego and maybe even a backup plan. And now, he and Melissa could have each other. I didn't care. Because I was free. A few weeks later, I was at dinner with my parents when my dad raised his glass and said quietly, "To dodging bullets." I laughed so hard I nearly choked. Because he was right. That's exactly what I did. Sometimes, late at night, I think about what would have happened if I hadn't found that guest list on the table. If I'd just walked blindly down the aisle, smiled for the pictures, and signed my name on those marriage papers. I think about how long it would have taken me to realize I'd made a mistake. A year? 5? Kids in the picture? A mortgage tying us together? And every time I think about it, I whisper a silent thank you to the universe for putting Melissa's name on that page. Because it saved me. Now, when people ask me about the wedding, I don't feel ashamed anymore. I tell them the truth, I almost married someone who didn't respect me. I called it off. Best decision I ever made. And the best part? I believe it. Because in the end, the story wasn't about him, or Melissa, or his family. It was about me realizing my worth. About me learning that love without respect isn't love at all, it's control dressed up as commitment. And I'd rather walk away alone than spend a lifetime being silenced.